Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Gems for Gems, Hope in Hell. My name is Laura Lee Harrison, and I am a Gems ambassador. We have come a long way from the days before #MeToo, when Gems would be contacted regularly, saying that most women who say they are abused are just saying that to get back at their ex. We have gained much acceptance of the reality that people are being abused across the street, in our neighbors' houses, and often within our own families. Yet we as a community still struggle with understanding the varying forms of domestic abuse, their lasting effects on the brain chemistry, self-esteem, and the future impact on all victims, including the children. Yes, even if they just witnessed it. Hope in Hell has been designed to show the different forms of abuse, but also to show that no matter how bad things get, there is always a hope in hell. These stories are real life accounts of abuse from male and female survivors who got through, clung to hope, and have now built a sustainable life. Some accounts will be read instead of an interview, as many survivors continue to live in fear of their abuser, because although they left, the abusers often don't stop doing everything in their power to hurt their victims. For many, it simply never ends.
Today we have our fifth anonymous story. I begged my mom not to have that male babysitter to watch my brother and myself many, many times. My first encounter with sexual abuse happened when I was about 8 years old. I was sexually abused by my parents' best friend's teenage son. He told me he wanted to play a game and that I needed to promise not to tell my parents or anyone else. The game made me feel very scared and sick. Something deep inside of me knew that this was very wrong. From that one incident, I knew to never leave the table that the adults were sitting around when we would go visit his home. My mom would always try to get me to play with other kids, but I knew that it wasn't safe to leave the adults. I became really shy and held this secret for most of my life. When I was 15 years old, I went on my very first date to a high school party. My girlfriend and I decided to drink a Mickey of vodka before our dates, as we were both really nervous. We continued to drink the vodka en route to the party. I could barely walk when we arrived at the party, and I decided to remain in the car. My date, John, began kissing me in the backseat of his car. He then had sex with me without my consent, while I was going in and out of consciousness from drinking too much vodka. I remember coming to and asking him to stop and feeling the pain, but he continued. I was a virgin, and I had never had sex before. I remembered seeing some of the high school boys looking in the backseat window, watching us. My childhood girlfriend drove me home that night. I woke up the next morning feeling hungover and very sore. I said to my friend that I had the worst dream, and she said, "My friend, that wasn't a bad dream. It really happened to you last night, and that is why I'm here with you." I immediately felt such shame. As I walked the hallway of my high school, the senior boys all clapped their hands like I had won a prize. It was humiliating. My mom blamed me for the date rape. She told me that I should have waited to have sex until I was married, and that I shouldn't have drank vodka before my date. She said, "You will be lucky if any boy wants to date you now that you are labeled as a slut." I began seeing the school counselor shortly after this, and she in fact affirmed that I was date raped, as I had not given consent and was heavily intoxicated. My self-confidence took a huge hit from it. Not only this incident, though, but also the sexual abuse as a young girl. I lost sight of my goals and my power. I'd wanted to go to law school and be a lawyer, as I was a straight A student. I just couldn't pull myself out of the shadow of this date rape to pull my marks up to apply for law school. I guess that you could say that I gave up on myself because of the shame that I felt. After high school graduation, I completed my diploma in the medical field and met my future husband while out one evening with a group of friends. We had a fast courtship and were married a year after our first date. I had noticed that he had a short temper and that it flared up when he was drinking. I found out years into our marriage that he was hiding his drinking from me at night when he was watching TV. He was doing this alone in our basement. We had already had our first baby when I connected the dots. I was firm in telling him that I would leave if he kept up this behavior. He promised me that he would change. Years went by and we had 2 more children. He was emotionally abusive and he had been physically abusive one time when he was very drunk. I felt trapped with 3 small children. I had given up my full-time job to stay at home to raise our children and to help him with his family's business. I truly lost myself during these years. I had given up on my own goals once again to nurture those around me. My sense of balance was tipped to one side, which naturally can happen when rearing small children. 20 plus years into our marriage, I had a heart attack at the kitchen table while I was alone. I was very unhappy in our marriage, but felt that I had no way out. Where would I live? How would this affect my children, my community, and my family? I spent a week in the cardiac unit of the hospital, and the cardiologist told me that I was under too much stress, and that if I didn't make some big changes in my life, that I wouldn't be around to see my children graduate. The cardiologist and nursing team had asked me if I was in an abusive marriage. I said yes, but was making plans to leave. I hired a counselor and a divorce lawyer a short time post-discharge from the hospital. The counselor said to me that this wouldn't be an easy decision, but that she would support me all the way and that it was time for me to stand up for myself for once in my life. I didn't have my mom stand up for me when I was a child, a teenager, or even an adult in a physical and emotionally abusive marriage. I was so scared to make this move, but I knew in my heart and soul that I was slowly dying inside from the abuse. I had pondered the thought of leaving for over 10 years. I proceeded with the long and messy divorce process. My husband became even more abusive during these months as he was so afraid of the losses of his material possessions and our family unit. Our children lived with me during the separation process in our family home for 2 years. One of them became very abusive to me in the process. I was devastated that this was happening. The threats and the name-calling towards me was truly shocking. I had asked for my children to see a psychologist during our legal proceedings, which happened for a short time only. One evening, things went sideways with one of my children. I had asked my husband to come home from the bar and to help me. He showed up in a fit of rage. He was threatening me with his fist in front of my face, and he had put a hole in the wall from the doorknob. I picked up my phone and I called 911 as I wasn't going to take this abuse anymore. The police came and asked me what had happened and went to talk to him. They told him to stay away from me or there would be a restraining order put in place. My counselor told me that it was common for children that are raised with a parent who is an abuser to replace the role of the abuser when the parent leaves the family home. This helped me to understand why one of my children began abusing me after my husband had left the home. Parental alienation was the next thing I had to endure. My husband turned my children against me in the process. I moved away from our local community and continued healing myself. Our separation agreement was finalized and I could finally settle into healing myself and reviewing the last 2 years. A lot of hours were spent with my family doctor and my counselor over that year of change. I had lost the location of my business, our family home, my community, and even my own mother chose to take the side of my ex-husband. I was truly devastated. She still, to this day, invites my ex-husband and our children to her home for the holiday events without me, her own daughter. Even though the past 45 years of my life have had some very hard times, I have learned some very valuable lessons. Most of all, I can truly say that I love my life and myself now. I am stronger than I have ever been. My career is helping other women and young girls to empower themselves from the inside out. I can say that through the lens of my own abuse, I have gained the wisdom to forage the tools to help other women shift into their own empowerment and self-love. I miss my children, but trust that in time they will see what they need to. I honestly had to choose me, or I wouldn't be here today. I feel like a completely different woman now, many years after my divorce, and I am so grateful that I had the strength and support around me to move through those difficult times to be who I have become. Thank you for listening to Gems for Gems, Hope in Hell. Gems for Gems is a registered charity focused on ending the cycle of domestic abuse through providing empowerment and scholarships to survivors. Our goal is to help survivors achieve personal and economic recovery to create lasting sustainability outside of abusive relationships. Gems for Gems has many ways for you to contribute to our cause. We have an empowering swag line through which every dollar you spend will be put directly towards our scholarship program and our newest initiative, Hope's Cradle. Please visit www.gemsforgemsswag.com. There are Donate Now buttons on our website, and as a registered charity, we can give tax-deductible receipts. We also have our ambassador team. If you would like to become more involved and help our organization achieve its goals from the inside, please visit our website, www.gemsforgems.com, and learn more about Gems for Gems. Please tune in to our next story and share this one with anyone or anywhere you would like. We can show every survivor, current victim, and community member that there is always a hope in hell, one story at a time.